Welcome to the RBRBoxing Weekly Roundup. Today is Friday, February 13th, 2015. I'm Alex Burgos, Editor-in-Chief of Round by Round Boxing. I'm joined by Brandon Glass and Peter Nieves, two of our writers, and we're going to sound off a little bit on what happened this previous week, some news and notes for you guys, and talk about the particulars there. How you doing, guys?
Good. Doing great.
So let's get into it. First up, Canelo Alvarez is going to be taking on James Kirkland on May 2nd in San Antonio. And the only way they're saying that this fight moves off that date is if the mega bout between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao is made. With the news that Kirkland is not training with Ann Wolfe this time, I think it really changes the dynamics of this matchup. So, Brandon, let's start with you. How do you see this matchup going now that we know a little bit more about the particulars? And does a Wolfeless Kirkland really stand a chance scoring an upset against Canelo?
I got to be honest with you. I'm a little devastated that he's not training with Ann Wolfe. Last time he fought without Ann Wolfe, he got knocked out by Ishida, and it just was a horrible situation for him. But I will say this, I feel like without Ann Wolfe in his corner, he will not be the same vicious animal that we're used to when he fights, and I'm a little bit let down by that because I was so looking forward to this fight. I mean, I have been asking for this fight or wanting this fight for years, and because I've wanted Canelo to get in there with a heavy puncher that's close to his weight and to see how he could do with that. But I feel like now I'm a little disappointed. I still want to see the matchup, but it changes the whole dynamic of the fight now that I know that Ann Wolfe is not training him.
Right, yeah, and I think a lot of people are looking at it that way. It's like they were excited when it was announced, but now that we're seeing a little bit more of the particulars, it looks like it's more one-sided in favor of Canelo. Now, Peter, who do you favor in this matchup?
I give the advantage definitely to Canelo, especially with the whole Ann Wolfe stuff going on, because I mean if you haven't heard, Kirkland tends to gain a lot of weight in between fights, and Ann Wolfe was a Jedi when it came to making him cut all that weight down. He moves up 20, 30 pounds, in between fights. And, from what I hear, Ann Wolfe really gets him into peak shape. So without him, it makes me think, maybe he may not come into the fight, completely 100% in shape. And you're going to have to be 100% in shape to fight Canelo. I think Canelo also goes a lot to the body, which is what really hurt him. If I'm not mistaken, he got dropped actually against the Japanese fighter from a body punch. So I think it could be pretty dangerous for him. I don't think it goes a distance, to be honest with you. I think there's a stoppage in the late rounds, and Canelo takes it.
Interesting, yeah. So it'll be fun to watch this whole process of him training, because they're doing a lot of posts on Instagram and kind of trying to, I guess, incorporate the fans and kind of show like, hey, we're working hard and we do stand a chance. So it'll be fun to keep an eye on that. So we'll have, more in-depth news and reports on that as that fight comes closer. And of course, we'll keep an eye out on if it does indeed keep the May 2nd date. So we'll see what happens with Mayweather and Pacquiao. But moving on, today we had some news on the Matisse-Provodnikov fight. A lot of Argentinian news outlets and a couple of other ones abroad are pretty much reporting that the fight is pretty much set. Oscar De La Hoya also spoke with FightHype.com and pretty much confirmed the same, just saying that except for a few loose ends, the Provodnikov and Matisse fight is a done deal. What we do know is that the date is set for March 28th. It'll air on HBO. The thing that's up in the air is the location. So it could be the StubHub Center, it could be Miami. It really doesn't matter. It could be in a dark alley. And this fight is going to be, all-action bout. Peter, who do you favor in this fight? It's going to be, fight of the year candidate without even seeing one round. We can already say that. But who do you favor in this matchup?
It's tough to go either way. It can arguably be a pick'em fight. Both guys have their pros to them. And, Matisse is a great boxer. He's a great puncher above anything else. Provodnikov, is a juggernaut. That guy comes forward. He has no neck. He just comes straight forward. and he's constantly ready to put on a show. I give the advantage to Matisse just by a little bit, just because I think he might be a slightly better boxer, and I think his movements are a little bit better than Provodnikov. But I would not count Provodnikov in any way out. And I do agree that it has the potential to be fight of the year, absolutely. And I actually hope that it's in StubHub, because I think the fans that come to the StubHub Center actually bring in that energy, and that those hardcore fans are going to be in there, and they're going to really fill up a lot of energy into the LA.
Right. Yeah. That arena is so much lore, and each fighter has already had a classic fight there. Right. I think it would be a shame if it wasn't held there, but I guess we'll keep an eye and see on what happens with that, with the announcement of the location. Brandon, who do you like early on, or calling it today? Who would you favor in that matchup, and what do you think it'll come down to?
I'd have to go with Matisse. As Peter alluded to, I also think that Matisse is the better boxer. And I think for the most part he's faced more stiff competition. And I love Provodnikov. It's going to be an action bout. I don't think it'll go the distance. But, the thing about Provodnikov is he does not care about defense or his face or his health or anything like that. And that's why people love him. And, that might work against a Timothy Bradley or someone like that, but when you are across the ring from a guy who can punch just as good as you can, I don't know if that is the tactic that you want to use against Matisse. So for that, because of the pedigree, the resume, I would have to go with Matisse.
Yeah, and it sounds like you both guys are saying, just slightly Matisse a little bit, better as far as technically speaking. He's got a few more tools, so sounds like, it may come down to that. But that fight is going to be really exciting to watch. Hopefully, been kind of saying the same thing for the past 3 weeks. Hopefully within the next couple of days we get an official announcement, because this thing's just dangling in front of our eyes. March 28th is right around the corner, so there's not much time left to even promote this thing. So, hopefully that announcement gets done, and we see, Provodnikov versus Matisse on March 28th. Moving forward, ESPN Deportes is reporting that Erislandy Lara and Miguel Cotto could possibly face each other this year. It's more so Lara's team. He's with Heyman and Louis de Cubas, who say that, they're kind of just waiting on that call, and that fight potentially could happen later on this year. Personally, I find it hard to believe that Cotto goes from, let's say, Canelo and then Mayweather to Lara. Not to say that wouldn't be a good fight. It's just not that marquee matchup that I think Cotto needs to really get focused and get up for at this point in his career. But if it were to go down, Brendan, how do you see that fight playing out?
If it were to go down, well, hopefully it will be in the Garden, of course. That's home field advantage for Cotto, and since he is the A-side fighter in this matchup, I think Lara would probably heed to his will, I would say.
Right, and in that report, actually, it said, he's willing to, certifiably be the B-side on weight, money, location, everything. So he's ready to do that. So, yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. But, yeah, that's a tough matchup, because Lara is an outsider, a rangy guy, but I do believe that Cotto has the resilience and the focus that he could possibly, edge Lara. I do think that this fight could possibly go the full distance, but also I think that Lara, when it comes to like the big stages, the big fights, either he always ends up on the losing end, which is unfortunate for his career, because he is a brilliant boxer, and I think he's one of the best guys out there. And unfortunately, I just feel like when it comes to the big matches, he usually ends up on the losing end, or he'll get a draw. So I think Cotto will probably get the best of him in this matchup, even though he's willing to take those he's willing to give Lara, he's going to concede to Lara, give him the concessions or whatever. But also, I just think that with Lara, I don't know if he's he calls himself the American Dream, but I don't know if he's ever going to get like a fair shake. And I would love to see that matchup. but I just don't see it going his way.
Right. Peter, what do you think about this matchup? Does it pique your interest, and who would you see winning?
I'm not surprised that Lara is, talking to media, trying to get that fight to happen. If I'm Lara, I'm trying to make any kind of big fight happen because he's known to have, what casual fans call, a boring style to watch because he's a pure boxer. He doesn't go out there and give a huge show for everyone. He hasn't had very many dramatic matchups or fights, and it's kind of hurt him because, he can't get those big name fights. Because he can't really bring in a crowd unless he's fighting a big name guy, and he's just not getting that right now. His biggest fight was with Canelo, and I personally thought he was actually going to win that fight because I thought he was a superior boxer, and honestly, I thought he was outboxing him the whole time. But he let off the gas in those later rounds, and he wasn't able to close the deal like I thought he would. Even Oscar said he's not going to give him a rematch, even if it was close, because no one wants to see Lara fight. And it's disappointing because he is a very talented fighter. In the case of Cotto, it's a different matchup because Cotto has a lot of experience with big names and small names, and he's versatile. He can punch with you, he can box with you, and he's been rejuvenated with Freddie Roach. So there's no telling how he's going to show up in a fight like that. I'm a little skeptical if it actually happens, but if it does happen, I definitely give Cotto the advantage because he's so versatile, and he can box and he can punch with Lara. So Lara's going to have to step up his game if he wants to beat Cotto.
Interesting, yeah, and we'll keep an eye on this. It's a little early, not much has been reported, but we'll see if we hear anything from Cotto's camp, and obviously there's always that, possibility that, I guess he's the dark horse in the situation with Mayweather and Pacquiao. If that fight doesn't go down, a lot of people assume that Mayweather versus Cotto 2 is an instant fight that would happen after. So there's a lot of variables going on in that situation. So we will keep an eye on it. But next up, let's actually transition into Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Not much to report here, but Lance Pugmire of the LA Times tweeted out today that, quote, silence is golden and no news is good news, end quote. So regarding that official announcement, if you really want to see that matchup, he says that's good news. Now, if we were to play a little percentage game, Peter, how close do you think this fight is percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise, I think it's definitely the closest it's ever been. Because, in past times, negotiations have already been stopped at this point. As far as it being May 2nd, I personally don't think it's going to happen May 2nd. I think now that Canelo is kind of out of the way and Cotto's possibly out of the way, Mayweather is going to, get another fighter, whoever it may be, whether it's Amir Khan or Cotto, and take the fight May 2nd and then maybe wait until September to make the fight with Pacquiao. That's personally my opinion. So at this point, for May 2nd, I think there's a 30% chance that he fights Pacquiao, in my personal opinion.
Brandon, same question. Percentage-wise, what would you say?
I have to go with Peter. If we're talking about May 2nd, I would even say less than 30. I'd say 25%. The guys need time to train. This is going to be the biggest fight of their careers, even at the top of the mountain of boxing where both fighters reside. In my personal opinion, I doubt. I seriously doubt it. I'm always going to be skeptical when it comes to this because it's like a soap opera, and I don't want to get my hopes up to get disappointed again, you know what I mean? I hate to be so cynical about it, but it's just like, I see the articles, I read the articles, and my thing is being like, okay, what now? And then I see another article, and I'm like, okay, what now? And so I just I'm a cynic when it comes to Mayweather Pacquiao, but I'd love to see it, don't get me wrong, but 25% is probably all I'll give it for May 2nd.
Right, and I was on record earlier this week saying I was about 40% Mayweather Pacquiao. At this point, it's got to happen this weekend for me because this is right around the time that the Robert Guerrero Floyd Mayweather fight was announced. The Pacquiao Mayweather fight doesn't really require a whole extravagant press tour.
Okay.
It sells itself, so I'm not really worried about that end. But we're knocking on the door of March here, and that's really going to be difficult. I'd love, obviously, like everyone else, I'd love to see Mayweather Pacquiao get it on May 2nd. I'm on the fence here, though. I'm really not sure. If it doesn't get announced, like I said, this weekend, then we're looking at some other matchups for either guy, and there's stuff out there, but obviously it's not not going to be of the magnitude that their matchup is. And
what else is there? I mean, unless they want
I think
to give
definitely for Mayweather, I think definitely for Mayweather, Cotto's out there.
Oh yeah, well I guess that I'm pretty sure, because I feel like with Cotto now, since he has his own promotional company, I think now he's more business minded. I think he's going the route of Mayweather, and he's going to do what's going to get him the most money and the best deal.
Absolutely.
And I just feel like with Cotto, like at the middleweight, like there's guys out there like Quillen and Triple G, whom both have not come up as possibilities for him. But I guess maybe he is waiting on this Mayweather Pacquiao matchup before he makes a decision, a definitive one. But and I think with these guys, it's about the business aspect of it more so now. And with Pacquiao and Mayweather at 147. Unless they're going to give somebody like Thurman or Kell Brook, some of these young guns like Sean Porter or some people like that, I really don't see what's left out there for them to do but fight each other.
Right. We'll keep an eye, obviously, on the Mayweather Pacquiao announcement if anything breaks within the next couple of days or beyond. So. Lastly, let's talk about another fight that was announced this week, which is Danny Garcia and Lamont Peterson. Now, it was confirmed for the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. A lot of people were really initially excited when this fight was announced because thinking that the titles were going to be unified and, that it was going to be a 12-round bout and it was going to be an exciting matchup. But come to find out, the bout's going to be at a 143-pound catch weight. There are no titles on the line, and it's going to be a 10-round fight. So it takes a lot of the luster out of this matchup, in my opinion. But, Peter, would you say that this fight is now downgraded a little bit and less exciting to watch because of these variables?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It takes almost all the fun out of it because it's essentially almost an exhibition for them. They're not gonna. There's nothing on the line for either one, and it's disappointing because you see Danny Garcia, and he's already takes a lot of criticism, for fighting guys like Salka, and he gained a lot of my respect from when he beat Matisse, but since then he hasn't really kept that train going, and for them to pull a move like this, and maybe financially it's better for him, maybe he's planning on moving up in weight. After this, who knows? Who knows with Al Heyman? What things he's got planned for Danny Garcia. But it's definitely for the hardcore fans. It's definitely disappointing, and I'm surprised that Peterson would agree to it unless he's getting a substantial amount of money to fight for something like that.
Yeah, Brandon. Same question for you. Do you think that all these variables take a lot of the interest out of the matchup, and is it still something that you want to see?
Well, of course, I want to see those two go at it, but it's basically just for fun at this point. There's really no game for Peterson, and I think this is a nod to the fact that I think Garcia is going to enter up into welterweight at 147 and try his luck there. But I think Lou refers to this as the Heyman effect. I think this is a great position for Garcia to be in, but as far as for Peterson, I think he's getting a raw deal. I mean, I was really excited about this fight, and then a couple of days later you find out that there's no title on the line. It just seems like you said, an exhibition. I don't know exactly if that means each guy, there's no guarantee that each guy will be on their A game, and I don't know. It's a little disappointing to me, but I still think that there's a triangle between Khan, Garcia, and Peterson, and would like to see those guys go at it, just to just to mix up the division, because I think ultimately all those guys are going to be in welterweight at some point. And I think maybe this is the transitioning for Garcia, and I think they're just trying to test him. So if it's just like a stepping stone, I mean, way to pick a stepping stone, because Lamont Peterson, although he's had his ups and downs, I think he's a game fighter. He's a capable fighter. But as far as like with the titles not being on the line, I think it sucks for Peterson.
Right. It's a weird situation because, Garcia obviously can't make 140 anymore. By the time he gets into the ring with Peterson, it'll be over a year since he's defended his titles. It's just, 142 catch weight for Salka, now a 143-pound catch weight with Peterson. Just move up.
Right.
Vacate your titles. I mean, WBC already mandated him that he's got to fight Postel next. Right. Which isn't going to happen. So It's just, they're keeping it in-house, I think, with Heyman for this one. And obviously, it's a good matchup. I definitely want to see it. It's intriguing, but I agree that it takes some luster out of it. And, I'd love to see Amir Khan try to get some get back against Garcia and Peterson. I like that trio that you mentioned, Brandon, and I like that at 147 eventually, if not later this year, maybe early next year. Obviously, Khan wants the biggest fights out there. He wants Mayweather and Pacquiao, but I wouldn't mind seeing him get in the ring with these guys first and see what happens there. But it all remains a mystery when Al Heyman's involved. So I guess we will keep an eye on that. Who knows? Now, next time we talk, it could be a 15-round fight. So, but as news breaks, we'll bring it to you. We'll be back next week with another weekly roundup. For Peter and Brandon, I'm Alex. Thanks for listening. Also, check out more news and notes and articles on RBRBoxing.com. Thanks for listening.